Olivia Parker, 32, stared at the screen displaying her sister Madison's $2.8 million account balance, dropping to zero. Her finger hovered over the confirm button as tears streamed down her face. How had it come to this? 2 months ago, she'd merely asked her sister for a $99 loan to fix her car, only to be mocked and humiliated in front of their entire family. Now, as the secret CEO of Madison's investment firm, Olivia held her sister's financial future in her hands. She pressed confirm. Before I dive into this wild family revenge story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever had a family member who thought they were better than everyone else, hit that like button right now. And if you want to see more family drama stories where karma comes back in the most unexpected ways, subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into how my own sister's superiority complex led to her biggest financial nightmare. Madison and I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, just 2 years apart but worlds away in personality. From childhood, Madison was the golden child, academically gifted, socially popular, and our parents' clear favorite. I still remember my 10th birthday, when she accidentally spilled punch on my new dress, minutes before my friends arrived, or how she'd take credit for my ideas at family gatherings, while my parents beamed with pride. Our rivalry intensified during our teenage years. While Madison was class president and prom queen, I struggled with severe social anxiety, partly triggered by years of living in her shadow. My parents never noticed how she would subtly undermine me, like the time she told my first boyfriend about my childhood bedwetting problem, or when she convinced my best friend that I'd been talking behind her back. Each betrayal was executed with such finesse that it always looked like innocent mistakes to our parents. The pattern continued into college. Madison attended Harvard on a partial scholarship studying finance and economics. I opted for a state school pursuing computer science and business administration. My parents drained their savings to help cover Madison's prestigious education, while I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school. It's an investment, my father would say. Madison's going places. The implication was always clear: my education wasn't worth the same sacrifice. Despite the constant comparisons, I excelled in my studies. I developed a talent for spotting market trends, and created an algorithm for investment prediction as my senior project. My professors were impressed, but at home it barely registered against Madison's internship at a prestigious Wall Street firm. "That's nice, honey," my mother would say, before quickly changing the subject to Madison's latest accomplishment. After graduation, Madison landed a job at Sterling Investments in New York, quickly climbing the corporate ladder. She never failed to mention her growing salary and bonus structure during holiday gatherings. I took a different path, moving to Silicon Valley to work for a series of startups. My family perceived this as settling for less. They didn't understand the tech world or my ambitions within it. What Madison and my parents didn't know was that my algorithm had caught the attention of venture capitalists. I was quietly building connections and developing my financial technology platform, Blue Sky Investments. I kept this part of my life private, tired of having my achievements diminished. While Madison boasted about her designer clothes and luxury apartment, I reinvested everything into my growing company. The distance between us grew both geographically and emotionally over the years. Our interactions became limited to obligatory holiday gatherings and occasional family emergencies. Madison evolved from being merely competitive to outright condescending. Her success in the financial world had convinced her that she was inherently superior, not just to me, but to anyone with less impressive credentials or salary. By our early 30s, we were essentially strangers, connected only by blood and shared history. Madison had become a senior investment manager, handling multi-million-dollar portfolios. I was operating Blue Sky Investments under a pseudonym known in the industry only as OP. To maintain privacy, my company had revolutionized algorithmic trading, but remained boutique and exclusive with a small but elite client list. Neither Madison nor our parents had any idea that I was now worth millions. They still thought I was barely making ends meet at some obscure tech company. I never corrected their assumptions, partly because I'd grown accustomed to their low expectations and partly because I was curious how long they could maintain their narrative about Madison's superiority in the face of my quiet success. The stage was set for our paths to cross again, not as sisters but as players in the financial world where Madison thought she reigned supreme. And it would all begin with a simple request for $99 that would ultimately change everything between us. Last spring, I flew back to Boston for my father's 65th birthday celebration. My 10-year-old Honda broke down the morning after I arrived, and with my primary bank account temporarily frozen due to suspicious activity, an ironic hazard of cybersecurity in my line of work, I found myself temporarily short on accessible cash. The family had gathered at my parents' home for a pre-dinner celebration. Madison had flown in from New York bringing her boyfriend Trevor, a hedge fund manager with family connections to old money. She arrived in a new Mercedes wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than my car repairs. Trevor just closed a massive deal with Japanese investors, Madison announced within minutes of arriving, not even bothering to greet me. We're celebrating with a trip to Bali next month. My mother oohed and awed appropriately while my father clapped Trevor on the shoulder. That's my girl always picking winners, he said, beaming at Madison. The subtext was clear, unlike her sister. The mechanic had called earlier with an estimate of $99 for the part my car needed. With my main accounts temporarily inaccessible, and my backup credit card in my other wallet back in California, I reluctantly decided to ask for a small loan. I waited until after the birthday toast to approach Madison quietly in the kitchen. Hey, I hate to ask, but my car needs a repair. Could you spot me $99 until tomorrow? My bank account's frozen due to some fraud alert. Madison's perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. She laughed, not a normal chuckle, but the kind of laugh designed to attract attention. Are you serious right now? You flew across the country but can't afford a simple car repair. I felt my cheeks flush. It's just a temporary cash flow issue. I'll pay you back tomorrow. God, Olivia, this is so typical. Madison's voice had risen, and now our parents and Trevor were looking our way. You're 32 and still can't manage basic finances. Is everything okay? My mother asked, entering the kitchen. Madison rolled her eyes dramatically. Olivia's car broke down and she's asking me for money. Again. The again was a complete fabrication. I had never asked her for money before. It's just $99, I said quietly. And it's just until tomorrow. It's always just something with you, Madison said. Just a small loan, just until tomorrow, just until you get back on your feet. She pulled out her phone, making a show of checking her banking app. Do you know what $99 invested properly can become over time? But you wouldn't understand that, would you? Trevor smirked. Compound interest is a concept they probably didn't cover at state school. The kitchen had now filled with family members drawn by the commotion. Madison looked around, clearly enjoying her audience. You know what, fine. She pulled a $100 bill from her wallet and slapped it on the counter. Keep the change. Consider it a birthday gift to Dad, not having to worry about you being stranded. My father looked embarrassed, not for Madison's behavior but for my apparent financial irresponsibility. Honey, if you needed money, you should have come to us, he said. I don't need money, I insisted. I just need to access my accounts. It's a temporary situation. Sure it is, Madison said, with a patronizing smile. Just like that big tech career of yours. What exactly do you do again? Something with computers at some company nobody's ever heard of. I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the same feeling I'd had throughout childhood when Madison would undermine me. But this time something different flickered inside me. I knew something she didn't. Not only was I financially secure, but my company Blue Sky Investments had recently acquired a controlling interest in Sterling Financial Group, Madison's parent company. The acquisition had been conducted through shell corporations and investment vehicles to maintain my anonymity. As OP, I was now effectively Madison's boss, though the restructuring hadn't yet been announced. I had planned to recuse myself from any decisions involving my sister when the time came to avoid conflicts of interest. But standing in my parents' kitchen watching Madison perform her superiority for our captive family audience, something shifted inside me. For 20 years I had endured her belittlement and sabotage. I had worked hard to build my success while she had been handed advantages and praise. "Thanks, but I don't need your charity," I said, leaving the $100 bill untouched on the counter. "I'll figure it out myself." "You always say that, but you never do," Madison replied with a dismissive wave. "That's why you're still driving a car older than Trevor's first investment portfolio." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. I forced a smile and excused myself, claiming I needed some air. As I stepped onto the porch, I could hear Madison launching into a story about a coworker who had similarly poor financial planning skills. Alone in the growing darkness, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to my COO, "Move forward with the Sterling restructuring immediately. I'll be taking a more active role than we discussed." The response came quickly, ahead of schedule. "Are you sure?" I stared back at the warm light of my parents' house where Madison was undoubtedly still holding court. Through the window I could see my father laughing at something she said, his face lit with pride. "Yes," I typed. "It's time." Nobody in my family knew that OP stood for Olivia Parker, or that the mysterious founder of Blue Sky Investments was the same person they pitied for her modest lifestyle. I had built my company with the utmost discretion, using my initials professionally and avoiding publicity. This wasn't just about privacy, it was about proving my worth through merit alone, without family connections or the privilege of Ivy League networks. The morning after my father's birthday party, I rented a car and drove to a nondescript office building in downtown Boston. This satellite office of Blue Sky Investments was one of several we maintained around the country, allowing me to work remotely when needed. Few employees knew what I looked like in person. Most meetings were conducted via secure video conferencing, with my features slightly obscured by specialized lighting. My COO James Chen was waiting for me in the conference room. He had flown in overnight from California after my text. "Are you absolutely certain about accelerating the Sterling integration?" James asked, sliding a folder of documents across the table. "The original plan gave us 6 months to quietly restructure without drawing attention to the acquisition." I signed the papers without hesitation. "I'm sure. Their corporate culture needs immediate overhaul. The leadership is complacent and entitled." James raised an eyebrow. "This wouldn't have anything to do with your sister working there, would it?" I had told James about Madison years ago when we were both working late, and personal stories slipped out over takeout and exhaustion. He was one of the few people who knew my full history. "Maybe it's time Madison learned that actions have consequences," I replied, avoiding his gaze. "Just be careful," he warned. "Mixing family and business rarely ends well." Over the next week, I stayed in Boston working remotely while the pieces of my plan fell into place. The news of Blue Sky's acquisition of Sterling Financial Group broke on a Tuesday morning. CNBC covered it as a stunning move by the reclusive tech genius known only as OP, marking Blue Sky's aggressive expansion into traditional financial services. I watched the business news from my hotel room, imagining Madison's reaction at her office in New York. By now her entire floor would be buzzing with rumors and speculation. An email would have appeared in her inbox along with everyone else's announcing an all-hands meeting to discuss the company's future. My phone rang. It was James. "Phase 1 complete. The Sterling board has been notified of their new reporting structure. Their CEO is being cooperative, albeit reluctantly. And the personnel audit underway. We're reviewing senior management performance metrics across all departments." What Madison didn't know yet was that her department had been flagged for unusually high client churn. Her impressive returns masked a troubling pattern. Clients who questioned her methods were subtly pushed out and replaced. She cultivated relationships with the wealthiest, most passive clients, while neglecting smaller accounts. This approach boosted her numbers, but violated Sterling's stated values of client service across all portfolio sizes. I had discovered these patterns during our pre-acquisition due diligence, but had said nothing, waiting to address it during the restructuring. Now it would become a central focus. On Thursday, 3 days after the acquisition announcement, Madison called me for the first time in months. I let it go to voicemail. "Hey Liv, it's me." Her voice sounded strained. "You'll never believe what's happening at work. Some tech company nobody's heard of just bought us out. Everyone's freaking out. Anyway, I might be coming to California next week for a meeting with these blue sky people. Maybe we could grab dinner. Call me back." I deleted the message without returning the call. By Friday, the integration team had identified 30 senior managers at Sterling for immediate review, including Madison. Each would be required to present their client management approach to the new leadership. The meetings would take place at Blue Sky's headquarters in Palo Alto the following week. I spent the weekend preparing. My plan wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Madison had built her career on taking credit for others' work and cultivating an image of success that didn't match her actual performance. The clients deserved better. Sterling's employees deserved better leadership. Monday morning, I flew back to California and walked into my corner office overlooking the San Francisco Bay. Unlike the ostentation of Sterling's Manhattan offices, Blue Sky's headquarters featured clean, minimalist design. Open workspaces interspersed with private meeting pods, living walls of plants and floor-to-ceiling windows. No mahogany, no pretension. "The Sterling managers arrive tomorrow," my assistant informed me. "Madison Parker is scheduled for 2 p.m. Move her to 4:30, I replied. "Make it the last meeting of the day." That evening I received another voicemail from Madison. "Liv, I'm in California. My meeting with the new boss got pushed to the end of the day tomorrow, which is super annoying. They're making us justify our entire client approach. Totally beneath someone at my level. Anyway, I'm staying at the Four Seasons in Palo Alto. Let me know if you want to meet up." I texted back for the first time, "Good luck with your meeting. I'm sure you'll impress them." Her response came immediately, "Of course I will. These tech people know nothing about real finance. I'll have them eating out of my hand by dinner." I set down my phone and looked out at the sunset over the bay. Tomorrow, Madison would finally learn what real finance looked like in the modern age, and discover exactly who she had been mocking all these years. Hey everyone, I can see we're at a real turning point in this story. Madison has no idea what's about to hit her, and I'm feeling that mix of anxiety and anticipation that comes right before confronting someone who's wronged you for years. If you're enjoying this journey of long overdue justice, take a second to hit that like button. I want to know if any of you have ever had to deal with a family member who constantly puts you down. Have you ever fantasized about a moment when they finally see your true worth? Drop your experiences in the comments below. And if you're new here and want more stories about family drama and sweet karma, subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next. I'm about to reveal what happens when Madison finally walks into that meeting room, sees who's really sitting in the CEO's chair. The Blue Sky headquarters buzzed with activity as Sterling managers arrived throughout the day. Each meeting followed the same format. Managers presented their client approach, answered questions from the integration team, and left with a clear understanding of Blue Sky's expectations going forward. Some emerged looking relieved, others shaken. I observed the earlier meetings via closed-circuit monitor from my private office, but for Madison's appointment I had something different planned. I arranged for her to be brought to the executive conference room, a glass-walled space overlooking the campus. I would meet her there face to face. At 4:25 p.m., I watched on the security feed as Madison stepped off the elevator. She wore an expensive black suit, her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, exuding the confidence of someone who had never been truly challenged. The administrative assistant escorted her to the conference room and offered her water, which she declined with barely concealed impatience. I waited until precisely 4:30 before entering through the private door at the back of the room. Madison was standing at the window, her back to me, speaking on her phone. "Some power play keeping me waiting," she was saying, probably intimidated by my numbers. "I'll call you after I've wrapped these people around my finger." I cleared my throat. "No need to end your call on my account, Miss Parker." Madison spun around, her eyes widening slightly at my casual attire, dark jeans, and a simple blue blouse, rather than the formal business wear she clearly expected. "I'll call you back," she said, into the phone before ending the call. She recovered quickly, extending her hand. "Madison Parker, Senior Investment Manager at Sterling." "And you are Olivia Parker," I replied, not taking her offered hand. "Founder and CEO of Blue Sky Investments." The confusion on her face would have been comical under different circumstances. She blinked rapidly, her mouth opening and closing without producing sound. Finally she managed. "Olivia, my sister Olivia, the very same." I gestured to the chair across from mine. "Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss about your future at Sterling." Madison remained standing, her shock giving way to disbelief. "This is a joke, right? You work for some obscure tech company. You're always struggling for money. You just asked me for a loan." "I asked you for a temporary $99 until my accounts were accessible again," I corrected. "And you used that request to humiliate me in front of our family, just like you've done our entire lives." She scoffed, but I could see uncertainty creeping into her expression. "So what this is, some elaborate prank? Borrowing an office to pretend you're important?" In response, I pressed a button on the conference table. The glass walls instantly frosted over for privacy, and the large screen on the wall lit up with Blue Sky's financial overview, billions in managed assets, growth charts, and acquisition history, culminating with Sterling Financial Group, OP. Madison read aloud, seeing my initials on the corporate materials. Your OP. The O. For someone in financial services, you never did your due diligence on me, did you? I remained calm even as her face flushed red. You were so convinced of your superiority that you never considered I might have succeeded on my own terms. Madison finally sank into the chair, her legs seemingly giving out. "How is this possible? How long have you been your boss?" I finished for her. "Blue Sky acquired Sterling 3 weeks ago. But I've been building this company for 7 years, while you were bragging about your bonuses at family dinners." Her shock was quickly replaced by calculation. I could practically see the gears turning as she reassessed our relationship in light of this new power dynamic. "Olivia, this is amazing." Her voice shifted to the syrupy tone she used when trying to charm someone. "Why didn't you tell any of us? We could have been working together all this time. Just think of the synergy between your tech approach and my client relationships." "Interesting pivot," I remarked coldly. "But we're not here to discuss family dynamics. We're here to discuss your performance issues at Sterling." I opened the folder before me and began laying out the evidence: her selective client treatment, the high turnover of smaller accounts, the complaints that had been buried by her sympathetic former manager. "Your returns look impressive on paper," I concluded, "but they mask serious ethical concerns about how you treat clients who don't meet your personal wealth threshold." Madison's face hardened. "That's business. We prioritize relationships that generate significant returns. Any competent financial manager does the same." "That may have been Sterling's approach under previous leadership," I acknowledged. "But it's not Blue Sky's philosophy, nor will it be Sterling's going forward." I slid a document across the table. This is a performance improvement plan. You'll be reassigned to our client retention team working with the accounts you've previously neglected. Your compensation will be restructured to prioritize client satisfaction across all portfolio sizes, not just total returns. Madison didn't touch the document. This is personal. You're punishing me because of our history. No, I'm holding you accountable for your professional conduct, I corrected. Every manager with similar metrics is receiving the same plan. The difference is, they don't have the option I'm about to offer you. Her eyes narrowed. What option A? Clean break. Resignation with 3-month severance contingent upon a non-disclosure agreement and non-compete clause. You want me to quit? Her voice rose in indignation. After everything I've built at Sterling, what you've built, I replied evenly, is a reputation for prioritizing your personal advancement over client welfare. That approach doesn't align with our corporate values. Madison stood abruptly, her chair rolling backward. You think you can push me out? Wait until Mom and Dad hear about this. Wait until the board unanimously approved the restructuring, I interrupted. As for our parents, what exactly do you plan to tell them? That your little sister outworked and outsmarted you? That the company you've bragged about for years is now mine? The color drained from Madison's face as the reality of her situation sank in. You've been planning this all these years, pretending to be struggling, driving that old car, living in that modest apartment. It was all an act. No, I said quietly. It was a choice. I don't measure my worth by displays of wealth. Unlike you, I don't need to prove my value through status symbols or by diminishing others. Madison's expression darkened. You had no right to hide this from me, from our family. I had every right to privacy, especially given how you've treated me. But this meeting isn't about the past, it's about your future. You have until tomorrow to decide: accept the performance plan or take the severance package. She snatched up the document, her hands shaking with rage. This isn't over, Olivia. Actually, I said, as she reached the door, there's one more thing. I pressed another button on the console and the screen changed to display a bank account, Madison's personal investment account with Sterling, showing a balance of $2.8 million. We've discovered irregularities in several employee investment accounts, including yours. Preferential trade executions, fee waivers, improper use of research tools reserved for client accounts. Madison's face paled. Those are standard industry perks. They're ethics violations under both SEC guidelines and Sterling's own compliance policies, I corrected. All affected accounts are being frozen pending further investigation. You're freezing my account, my money. Her voice rose in panic. You can't do that, it's not a permanent freeze, I assured her. Once the compliance review is complete, any funds obtained through legitimate means will be released. How am I supposed to live? My mortgage, my expenses. Perhaps you could ask our parents for a loan, I suggested. Or is $99 too much to request from family? Madison's face contorted with fury. You vindictive bitch. This is all because I embarrassed you about that stupid car repair. I stood, signaling the end of our meeting. No, Madison, this is because actions have consequences, something you're finally learning at 34. You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to make your decision about the performance plan or severance package. Security will escort you out. As if on cue, the door opened, and 2 blue sky security personnel appeared. Madison looked from them to me, her expression a mixture of rage and disbelief. You'll regret this, she hissed. I don't think I will, I replied calmly. Goodbye, Madison. After she was escorted out, I sank back into my chair, surprised by the emotional toll of the confrontation. For years I had fantasized about Madison finally seeing me as an equal, or even having to acknowledge my success. But now that it had happened, I felt strangely hollow. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Is it done? It's done, I replied. She has until tomorrow to decide. And then I stared at the empty chair where my sister had sat, wondering if there could ever be reconciliation after today. And then we see what she's really made of. The call from my mother came at 7:23 the next morning. Olivia Ann Parker, what on earth have you done? Her voice trembled with a mixture of anger and confusion. Madison just called us hysterical. She says you're trying to ruin her career and freeze her assets. She said you lied to us for years about some company you own. I had been expecting this call, but the reality of it still made my stomach clench. Mom, it's complicated. Madison's not giving you the full story. Then explain it to me, she demanded. Your father is beside himself. Madison says you humiliated her in front of her colleagues. I took a deep breath. I founded a financial technology company called Blue Sky Investments 7 years ago. We recently acquired Sterling Financial Group, where Madison works. During our standard review process, we identified some compliance issues with her account and client management approach. The silence on the other end stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. You own the company Madison works for? She finally asked, her voice small. Yes. I'm the CEO and majority shareholder. And you never told us, all these years letting us think you were struggling. I closed my eyes, feeling a familiar pressure in my chest. I wasn't struggling, Mom. I just wasn't flaunting my success the way Madison does. But why keep it a secret from your family? We could have celebrated your accomplishments, been proud of you. Like you were always proud of Madison. The words came out sharper than I intended. Even when she belittled me, even last week when she humiliated me over asking for a temporary loan of $99, my mother's voice hardened. So this is revenge. Madison was right. No, I insisted. This is business. Madison's performance metrics triggered an automatic review. The same thing happened to 29 other managers with similar issues. But you're her sister, couldn't you have warned her, given her special consideration? And there it was, the same dynamic that had defined our childhood. Madison deserved special treatment. I was expected to make accommodations. That would be nepotism, Mom. And possibly illegal, given the regulatory issues involved. I don't understand all this business talk, my mother dismissed. I just know that family should come first. Your father wants to speak with you. I heard rustling as the phone changed hands. Olivia. My father's voice was uncharacteristically stern. You need to fix this situation with your sister immediately. Dad, I don't want excuses, he interrupted. Madison says her entire career is in jeopardy. Her reputation in the industry will be ruined if this gets out. Her reputation should reflect her actual performance, I replied evenly. She's been cutting corners and neglecting smaller clients to boost her numbers. She's been the top performer at Sterling for 3 years running, he countered. By manipulating the metrics and violating compliance protocols, I explained. Dad, I have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients and shareholders. I can't ignore that because she's my sister. His voice lowered dangerously. So you'd destroy your sister's career over some corporate rulebook? Is that who we raised you to be? The question hit me like a physical blow. You raised me to believe that actions have consequences, I said quietly. At least that's what you always told me when I made mistakes. Madison never seemed to get the same lesson. That's enough, he snapped. I want you to release Madison's accounts immediately and withdraw whatever complaint you've filed. I can't do that, Dad. The compliance investigation is already underway. You can and you will, he insisted. Or you'll no longer be welcome in this family. I felt a chill spread through me. Are you serious right now? You're threatening to disown me because I won't give Madison special treatment? I'm telling you to do the right thing, he said firmly. Family loyalty comes first, always. Even when that family member has broken rules and potentially laws, you're exaggerating the situation to justify your actions, he accused. Madison told us what this is really about. You're jealous of her success and looking for payback. I laughed without humor. Dad, I built a multi-billion-dollar company from nothing. What exactly would I be jealous of? Your sister has always had what you wanted, our approval, he said bluntly. And now you're using your position to punish her for it. His words knocked the breath from my lungs. The raw truth of them, not that I was jealous of Madison, but that my parents' approval had always been withheld from me, left me momentarily speechless. Madison has until 5 p.m. today to decide whether to accept the performance improvement plan or take the severance package, I finally said. Those are the same options given to everyone in her situation. That's not good enough, my father insisted. It's all I can offer, I replied. I'm sorry. If you go through with this, don't bother coming home for Thanksgiving, he said coldly. Or any family gathering. You've made your choice. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat at my kitchen counter phone, still clutched in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. In less than 24 hours, my carefully separated worlds had collided catastrophically. The family dynamic I had endured for decades had reached its breaking point. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Hope you're happy. Mom and Dad are devastated. This vendetta will cost you more than you know. I didn't reply. At work, I tried to focus on the day's meetings, but my mind kept returning to my father's ultimatum. By enforcing the same standards for Madison that applied to everyone else, I had apparently crossed an unforgivable line. At 4:58 p.m., my assistant informed me that Madison had submitted her decision electronically. She had opted for the severance package rather than the performance plan. She would leave Sterling immediately with 3 months' salary and benefits continuation in exchange for signing the non-disclosure and non-compete agreements. I should have felt relieved that she had chosen the cleaner break. Instead, I felt a profound sadness not just for the relationship with my sister that would never be repaired, but for the family bonds that had proved so conditional. That evening I received an email from my mother with the subject line, "Family Photos." The body contained no text, only attachments, dozens of family photographs spanning decades, Madison's graduations, holidays, vacations. What struck me most was how few of them included me, and in those that did, I was often on the periphery, while Madison occupied the center. It wasn't subtle, this reminder of where I stood in the family hierarchy. The message was clear. I had been excluded before, and now I would be excluded permanently. I closed the email without replying and poured myself a glass of wine. Outside my living room windows, San Francisco sparkled in the twilight. I had built a successful life here, thousands of miles from the family that had never fully valued me. I had proven my worth 1,000 times over in the business world. So why did this rupture still hurt so much? My phone rang again, James, this time. The compliance team completed their preliminary review of Madison's accounts, he reported. They've identified multiple violations, including unauthorized fee waivers, preferential trade executions, and access to research that should have been restricted to client use. What's their recommendation? I asked, already knowing the answer. Full freeze of the disputed assets pending regulatory review, he said. Approximately $2.8 million of her $3.2 million balance is implicated, and the remaining $400,000, clean, legitimate salary and bonuses that can be released immediately. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision before me. By all rights, I should allow the standard procedure to unfold. Madison had knowingly violated compliance protocols for personal gain. The rules existed for a reason. But my father's words echoed in my mind, "You'll no longer be welcome in this family." Was enforcing corporate policy worth losing my family entirely, even a family that had always favored Madison? Was this justice or revenge, Olivia? What do you want to do? James prompted when I didn't respond. I opened my eyes and stared at the city lights, making my decision. Hold the freeze, I told James, surprising both of us. At least temporarily. Are you sure? His voice carried unmistakable concern. This goes against standard protocol. I know. I swirled the wine in my glass, watching it catch the light. Give me 48 hours to consider alternative approaches. Tell the team it's a special circumstance requiring executive review. After ending the call, I spent the night reviewing Madison's file in excruciating detail. The evidence was damning. Over 3 years, she had systematically exploited her position for personal gain, saving herself thousands in fees, while receiving preferential treatment that gave her investment accounts an unfair advantage. She had broken the rules, just as she had broken social contracts within our family for years. Yet something about executing the freeze felt wrong. Not because Madison didn't deserve consequences, she absolutely did, but because I questioned my own motivations. Was I acting as CEO of Blue Sky upholding corporate governance? Or as Olivia Parker, the perpetually dismissed younger sister, finally wielding power over her tormentor? The next morning I called an unexpected person, Trevor Madison's boyfriend. To my surprise, he agreed to meet me for coffee at a neutral location in Palo Alto. "I'll be honest," he said, as he slid into the chair across from me. "I'm only here because Madison is absolutely devastated." "I imagine she is," I replied. "Finding out your little sister owns your company and has evidence of your compliance violations would be quite a shock." Trevor studied me carefully. "You know you two are more alike than either of you realize." I bristled. "We're nothing alike. Aren't you?" He raised an eyebrow. "Both ambitious, both stubborn, both willing to go to extraordinary lengths to prove yourselves. The difference is, Madison needs everyone to see her success while you've hidden yours." "That's an interesting observation from someone who's only met me once," I said coolly. "Madison talks about you more than you'd think," he replied. "Usually when she's had a few drinks, there's a lot of resentment there, but also admiration she'd never admit to." I nearly laughed. "Admiration? For what? Your independence? Your refusal to care what others think?" He shrugged. "Madison's entire self-worth is built on external validation. Always has been, according to her." This gave me pause. I'd always seen Madison as the golden child basking in our parents' approval. I'd never considered that their expectations might have become a prison of sorts. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because this situation can end one of two ways," Trevor said bluntly. "With both of you losing your family forever, or with someone being big enough to break the cycle. And since Madison is currently sobbing in our hotel room, I'm betting it won't be her." His words stayed with me as I returned to the office. Breaking the cycle. Was that even possible after decades of established patterns, and why should I be the one to do it? That afternoon I received another call from my father. "The bank says Madison's accounts are still restricted," he began without preamble. "The compliance review takes time," I replied. "Standard procedure would be—" "I don't care about standard procedure," he interrupted. "I care about my daughter being able to pay her mortgage." "I'm working on a solution," I said carefully. "But Dad, you need to understand that Madison broke rules. Serious ones." There was a long pause before he spoke again, his voice notably softer. "Olivia, why did you never tell us about your company, about your success?" The unexpected question caught me off guard. "Would you have believed me?" I asked honestly. Another long silence. "I've been thinking about that question all day," he finally said. "And I'm not sure we would have. That's not something a father should have to admit." The crack in his voice triggered something in me, a realization that perhaps my parents were also trapped in the dynamic they'd created, unable to see beyond the roles they'd assigned to each daughter. "Dad," I said gently, "I need to handle this situation properly, following both legal and ethical guidelines. But I promise I'm looking for a solution that doesn't destroy the family." "I shouldn't have threatened to cut you off," he admitted. "Your mother and we're trying to understand all this. It's a lot to process." "I know," I said. "For everyone." After we hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time thinking about cycles of behavior and the courage it takes to break them. Finally, I called James. I need to see the complete breakdown of Madison's compliance violations, I said. Not just the summary, every transaction, every fee waiver, everything. By evening, I had a clearer picture. Madison's violations, while serious, were not criminal. They fell into gray areas that many in the financial industry exploited. Her arrogance had made her careless, leaving electronic trails that more sophisticated players would have concealed. I made my decision. The next morning, I instructed our legal team to prepare a custom agreement for Madison. Her assets would remain frozen for 30 days while she completed an intensive ethics training program. After successful completion and a signed acknowledgement of her violations, we would release her funds with a formal warning. The incident would be documented but not reported to regulators provided there were no future violations. This is highly irregular, our compliance officer warned. Sometimes personal outreach works better than punitive measures, I replied, choosing my words carefully to avoid revealing our relationship. Miss Parker has valuable industry knowledge. I'd rather rehabilitate than terminate. With the paperwork prepared, I took the unusual step of requesting a meeting on Madison's home turf, New York City. 3 days later, we faced each other across a table in a private room at a midtown restaurant. "Why am I here?" Madison asked, her voice hoarse from what sounded like days of crying. "Haven't you done enough?" I slid the agreement across the table. "This is an alternative to the standard procedure for your compliance violations." She skimmed the document, her brow furrowing. "Ethics training. A 30-day hold instead of indefinite freeze. Why would you offer this?" "Because, despite everything, you're my sister," I said quietly. "And I don't want this situation to destroy our family, even if that family has often felt more like yours than mine." Madison's eyes filled with tears, not the manipulative ones I'd seen her use throughout our lives, but raw, genuine emotion. "I never thought you'd succeed like this," she admitted, gesturing vaguely to indicate my position. "You were always so quiet, so different." "Different doesn't mean less," I said. She nodded slowly. "I know that now." She tapped the agreement with one manicured nail. "And if I complete this training and acknowledge my mistakes, then you get your money back minus any improperly obtained gains. You'll have a clean record provided you don't repeat the violations." Madison studied me, really looked at me perhaps for the first time in our adult lives. "You could have taken everything." "Yes," I acknowledged. "I could have." "Why didn't you?" I considered various answers because it was the right thing to do, because I wanted to be the bigger person, because I didn't want to lose my family. All were true but incomplete. "Because I don't want to be defined by resentment anymore," I finally said. "For either of us." Madison signed the agreement without further comment. As she stood to leave, she paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For a lot of things." "I know," I said, because somehow in that moment I did. "Do Mom and Dad know you're in New York?" I shook my head. "I fly back tonight." Madison hesitated, then said, "They should see you. Their worldview has been pretty thoroughly shattered this week. Finding out their supposedly struggling daughter is actually a financial powerhouse has forced some uncomfortable reflections." "I'll think about it," I promised. That evening, instead of heading to the airport, I took a train to Boston. My parents opened the door looking older than they had just weeks earlier, the strain of recent events etched on their faces. "I spoke with Madison today," I said once we were seated in the living room that suddenly felt both familiar and foreign. "We've reached an agreement about her accounts." "Thank you," my father said, simply. "I didn't do it for thanks," I replied. "I did it because it was the right balance between accountability and compassion." My mother reached for my hand, a rare gesture from a woman who had never been physically demonstrative with me. "Olivia, we owe you an apology." "Many apologies, probably." "For what specifically?" I asked, not unkindly. "For not seeing you," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "For comparing you to your sister, instead of appreciating who you are. For making you feel like you had to hide your success from us." My father nodded in agreement. We failed you, and we didn't even realize it until all this happened. The validation I had craved for decades now sat before me, offered freely. Yet rather than triumphant, I felt oddly peaceful. I don't want to dwell on the past, I said. But I do want things to be different going forward. They will be, my father promised. For all of us. As I finally boarded a plane back to California later that night, I reflected on the extraordinary week that had changed everything. The $99 loan request that had triggered a seismic shift in our family dynamic. The revelation that had forced us all to see one another clearly for perhaps the first time. Madison and I would never have the sisterly bond that some siblings enjoyed. Too much history lay between us for that. But perhaps we could build something new, a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than competition and resentment. And perhaps I could finally stop defining myself in opposition to her, the quiet to her loud, the hidden to her visible, and simply be Olivia Parker on my own terms. 6 months later, I stood at the podium of Blue Sky's annual leadership conference, addressing 300 employees and executives from both Blue Sky and the now fully integrated Sterling Financial Group. The theme of the conference was Transparent Ethics in Financial Technology, a direct response to the compliance issues we had uncovered during the merger. Integrity isn't just about following rules, I told the audience. It's about understanding why those rules exist in the first place, to create a level playing field where all participants can trust the system. From my position on stage, I could see Madison sitting in the middle of the audience. After completing the ethics training program, she had surprised everyone, especially me, by applying for a position in our client advocacy department, a newly formed team responsible for ensuring equitable treatment across all account sizes. Her application had triggered intense debate among our leadership. Some argued it smacked of nepotism. Others worried about her history of compliance violations. In the end, I had recused myself from the decision, allowing the hiring committee to evaluate her purely on merit. They had hired her with strict probationary conditions. To her credit, Madison had accepted them without complaint and had spent the past 4 months rebuilding her reputation from the ground up. After the keynote address, we gathered for the leadership dinner. I had seated Madison at a different table from mine, conscious of maintaining professional boundaries, but she approached me during the cocktail hour. Nice speech, she said, sipping sparkling water, another change in the formerly hard-partying sister I had grown up with. Especially the part about transparency, creating strength rather than vulnerability. Thank you, I replied. How are things going in client advocacy? Challenging, she admitted. But good. I'm working with accounts I would have ignored a year ago, and finding that the relationships can be just as rewarding as the high net worth clients. Different, but valuable. I nodded, noticing how she held herself differently now, less aggressive posturing, more genuine confidence. Your team lead mentioned your rural banking initiative is gaining traction. Madison smiled slightly. It's something I actually believe in. Financial services shouldn't just be for people in coastal cities with trust funds. I agree, I said, meaning it. An awkward silence fell between us, not hostile, but the natural discomfort of two people still learning how to interact after decades of dysfunctional patterns. Mom called yesterday, Madison finally said. They want to know if we're both coming for Thanksgiving. The invitation represented more than just a holiday gathering. It would be the first time our entire family would be together since the upheaval of the acquisition and its aftermath. I'll need to check my calendar, I said carefully. What about you? I'm going, she replied with unexpected firmness. Trevor and I both are. He thinks this whole family reckoning has been tremendously healthy. She rolled her eyes but without real annoyance. His psych degree makes him insufferable sometimes. I laughed, a genuine, unguarded moment between us that would have been unimaginable 6 months earlier. You should come, Madison added, more serious now. Dad's been seeing a therapist, can you believe it? said he needed to understand why he created such a competitive dynamic between his daughters. Mom's been going too. This was news to me. Really, they didn't mention it when we spoke last week, Madison shrugged. They're private about it, but they're trying, Liv. We all are. Later that evening, back in my office after the dinner concluded, I found myself staring at the photo I now kept on my desk, one taken at my parents' anniversary celebration last month. Madison and I stood on either side of our parents, all of us smiling, somewhat tentatively, like people learning a new skill. We weren't a perfect family. The damage of decades couldn't be undone in 6 months. But we were finally seeing each other clearly without the distorting lens of assigned roles and expectations. My phone buzzed with a text from James' client from Tokyo landing tomorrow. Dinner plans. Before I could reply, another message arrived, this one from Madison. Before you say no to Thanksgiving, remember Mom's making her apple pie. And I promise not to mention that time in 3rd grade when you threw up on the Thanksgiving turkey. I found myself smiling. The message contained a joke, but not at my expense, a shared childhood memory without malice. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. I texted back, only if you promise not to mention the time you convinced me the giblets were alien eggs. Her reply came seconds later, deal. See you at the office tomorrow, boss. I put down the phone and turned to the window looking out at the San Francisco skyline. My path to success had been lonely at times, driven partly by a desire to prove my worth to a family that had overlooked me. But the true victory wasn't the company I'd built, or even the long overdue recognition from my parents and sister. It was the freedom I now felt to be exactly who I was, neither defined by Madison's shadow nor by my reaction to it. The $99 that had triggered everything now seemed almost laughably small compared to the valuable lessons it had ultimately purchased. I turned back to my desk and opened my laptop to finish reviewing quarterly projections. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for growth, both professional and personal. And for the first time in my life, I was facing them not as Madison's sister, or even as OP, but simply as Olivia Parker, finally comfortable in my own skin and story. And you know what? That feeling is worth more than any amount of money in the world. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this journey through my family's dramatic transformation. If you've ever experienced that sweet moment of justice when someone who underestimated you finally sees your true worth, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your stories of family karma or unexpected vindication. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it too, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life drama and lessons about family success and finding your own path despite what others expect from you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Remember, sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the ones who need to learn the biggest lessons. Share this video if you know someone who needs to hear that message, and I'll see you in the next story.